Welcome to the Inside Out podcast with me, your host, Valanda, and I am a licensed clinical therapist, and I help people heal from the inside out by helping them to build self-awareness and exploring the internal parts that could be preventing them from being their full, authentic self. The work that I do in my practice inspired me to then create this podcast called Inside Out, where I talk to professionals and we talk about their journey with finding their purpose, the challenges that they face, and the lessons that they learned. And in honor of International Women's Day, I'm excited to speak to Gayan Bashannon. So welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to have you here. Now, before I have you introduce yourself, I really would like us to go into a breathing exercise so we can just both kind of come into the room. And so, would you engage me in that?
Of course.
Well, thank
I
you.
need
Thank
that.
you. So, if you could just take a moment and relax and breathe in on a count to 4. Ready? 2, 3, 4. And breathe out. And just notice your body supporting the chair. Notice your shoulders softening up. Notice your jaw just relaxing. And just take one more breath in. And release it. How you feeling?
Ready?
Good. So now that we are settled, I would like you to let the audience know who you are and what it is that you do in your work and in your business.
I am Gayon Buchanan, and I am the program director for an all memory care assisted living community, and also the founder of Bella Cares. Now, Bella Cares' mission is to equip caregivers with the necessary knowledge and the strategies that they need to deal with individuals who are living with dementia.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, these individuals, they do not know how to really manage a full day without feeling burnt out, without feeling as though they're carrying the weight of the world. And sometimes all they need is that extra help to help them navigate the challenges that they face. For example, there are strategies with dealing with someone who doesn't want to take a shower. Sundowning is one of the biggest challenges that caregivers face, and there are strategies to deal with situations like that.
And this is why I am so excited that you are here today, because I know that you have a plethora of strategies and methods that people could use. And, I know personally people who are going through the weight of caring for a loved one with dementia. So I am just like ready to dive in. So thank you so much. And so let's start with the emotional reality that caregivers face, and I'm thinking of the idea of the unseen caregiver, right? Because for most people, you might know someone and you might see someone who you know is caring for someone who has dementia, but they don't understand the emotional, the physical, and mental load that comes with that load. And so for someone who's not familiar with caring for someone, what does that unseen load of reality look like on a daily basis for caregivers?
So, for the first thing, especially if this individual is the spouse or the children or the sibling, they have to deal with that loss, the loss of someone that they knew, who now they have to learn to understand this totally new person. They're looking at someone that they know, but they don't really know this person. So that kind of loss, they also go through that loss at every stage as well, because at every stage they present differently. And then you have to learn this. It feels like you're having to learn this other new person all over again. I remember talking to a family member, and she said that it felt as though she was looking at her mother, but it wasn't her mother. So you find that they are grieving already before the individual actually passes. And then when the individual passes, they are grieving the individual that they have come to now know, and their mother that they knew, that they grew up with. There's also the challenge of family dynamics, where you often see most of the time it's probably that one person who has that load all the time. And looking at the other siblings' point of view, it's hard for them sometimes to deal with seeing their loved one progressing as they progress, because you're not able to sit down and have conversations with that person anymore. They don't know who you are. So it's challenging for other family members as well, because they really don't know how to handle their feelings and what's going on. So that person is left to carry that burden.
Wow. And so what I hear you saying is that, a lot of times it sometimes goes on that one person.
That one
And
person.
that one person is caring for a person who they have to get to know sometimes on a weekly basis, because cognitively they're changing.
Right.
And so even when you look at loss, and the stages of grief and loss, the denial and the anger and the bargaining, I'm sure it is something that they experience sometimes on a daily basis. And it's got to be a challenging thing to also watch.
It is. It's challenging, especially for a spouse who they planned on having probably to travel the world after they retire. And then here comes the diagnoses, because, they got diagnosed in their early 60s, sometimes as early as in their 50s, because you do have early onset dementia.
In the 50s.
And yes, and in the 40s. And unfortunately, it's very hard for the spouse to deal with it, because now they don't know what to do with their anger. They don't know what to do with their emotions. And not everyone is open to going to a support group or to seek counseling. For some people, they would prefer to write it down. This gentleman told me once that for him, he realized that in making himself anxious, he doesn't have to deal with the sadness.
And making himself anxious, that's a distraction from being present with what's really going on.
Correct.
Really. And I can imagine, even for a spouse, like you said, you had the vision and the dream with your person to maybe travel the world or, get into all of these things that you used to plan for, and now having to think differently because you went from spouse to now caretaker. And so that's got to be very challenging. But even for kids, not only spouses, because sometimes you're used to seeing your mom or your dad in charge and in control. And then when you start to see them not be able to remember things, it's just really difficult to watch. What are some of the things caregivers are carrying that most people around them may not see?
They are carrying their own illnesses. They're carrying their own weight, where they're not able to do the things that used to make them happy as before. So let's say, for example, a daughter having to give up work to stay home to take care of her parent. you find, unfortunately, that the majority of the time it is women who are the caregivers, and you
Yeah.
have women who they still have young children and their own
Mm.
um, family, their own spouse to take care of, and they still have to go to work.
Yeah.
And that outlet that they usually have where they're able to just slow down and release,
Mhm.
now that time is now having to be spent to take care of their loved ones.
Yeah.
And without having a structured support or plan to say, well, on weekends, this person is going to come over and stay with mom or dad
Mm.
so that I can get 2 hours to go do something
Mhm.
for me.
Mm.
Um, for some, it's, I would love to be able to go sit outside and, just do something for me,
Yeah.
listen to the birds, tend to the garden. But unfortunately, what little time that they have left
Mhm.
after having to be there, be present to take care of their loved ones, they're not able to take care of themselves. And then often you find that they themselves become ill and end up needing either respite care or they end up needing someone to care for them as well.
Yeah.
So caregiver burnout, it is
It's
very
real.
real and it's really dangerous.
Mm.
So that is why I am at the point now where I think I need to start helping to shine a light on, that burden that caregivers they they have to carry without
Yeah.
having support or without having an outlet to get that reset and that refresh that they need to continue to pour into somebody else.
Absolutely. And, it is just really a pleasure to know that you are out here, really identifying and bringing awareness to this because a lot of caregivers, they sit with this alone. And what people also don't see is the tears that they cry. What they also don't see is the mental exhaustion that they go through. Because I think some people say, well, honor thy mother, thy father, but they don't understand the work that goes into that. And when you have
Absolutely.
limited resources and you're not able to share that with siblings and other family members, it can lead to burnout. It could lead to anxiety and depression.
And death.
Say that again.
And
Yeah.
death. I have
Unfortunately.
seen too often the caregiver ends up in the hospital and dies, and the individual living with dementia has to be placed into a care facility because the caregiver is no longer there to take care of them.
And this is what can happen when the caregiver doesn't incorporate themselves into their own calendar.
Absolutely.
Because balance is important. And a lot of times when caregivers are caring for the person, they get overlooked. They put themselves on the back burner. And so I like to talk about supports and what that looks like, and how families and even memory care communities can do a better job with supporting caregivers who are holding this responsibility. Can you talk a little bit on that?
So I like to use my community as the example because that is where I see the needs and that is where I come up with ideas. So one of the things that we do is we offer a support group. We offer programs for families. For example, making sure that they know where to find help, making sure that they know where resources are. A case in point, earlier this week, we had our ombudsman come by to do a meet and greet with the families so that they know that that person is there to advocate for the residents. So you don't have to do that alone. One of the other things that we do is, and it also is important that for any any staff who is working with individuals of this population, they have to love the population. They have to, my thing is, you treat everyone as though they were your family. If
that.
my family was in a nursing home or an assisted living, how would I want her or him to be treated? And you can never go wrong if you say, how would I want my family to be treated, and treat the individual that way. So you'll find that our residents, they are happy. The families are happy to see them happy. We'll have
That's great.
we'll have residents move in who they wouldn't even, there wasn't any smile and no color. And after being there for a couple of weeks, they are smiling and it's as though you see a different person. And I attribute that to the conversations that the staff has with them, because they treat them with dignity as if they are there. And each person is unique. You met one person with dementia, you have not met everyone with dementia. And so make sure that we put things in place so the caregivers, they have support so that they can support the residents. And support means me sometimes having to sit down and listen to a conversation that gives me a headache. But at the end of the day, the individual, the caregiver was able to offload all of that so that they go back. They're encouraged to hug the residents. They're encouraged to sit with them at mealtime and have a meal, especially the ones who are lower functioning that is not able to feed themselves. So from a community standpoint, those are some of the things that will help the caregivers to help the residents so that they can, do better at whatever is happening for that day. Is it hard sometimes? Of course, there are challenges because you'll have one resident that something will work for him or her today. It's not going to work tomorrow. But you'll find that, for example, we had 2 nice warm days and every staff walked with someone outside. Now, you don't see that very often where staff really takes that effort to make sure that someone enjoys their day and they're not just existing or being, or given something to be busy. They engage them. And that is as a result of the support that they get not only from me, but from the company.
I think that is wonderful, first of all, because I believe that every company starts from the head up. And it sounds like you just don't manage the program. You sit with the staff. You allow them to have that space to unload, although it could be difficult for you with you managing everything. And so it's coming from all levels is what I hear you saying, which is just wonderful because everyone is feeding and supporting everyone. And that is just so important. So the support groups, is it for the community or just the residents? And is it online or in person or both?
So it is right now, it's for the families of our residents.
Okay.
But we want to make it more for the community.
That would be so great.
And apart from that, I would like to do that, offer that support group to my community. So that's also something that I would love to start doing soon. I'm also a certified Alzheimer's disease and dementia support group facilitator as well. So that has been something on my heart to offer that to my hometown community as well. So that is the next step that I would like to take.
That is great. That is great because there are so many other caregivers who families aren't in the nursing home who could use that.
Absolutely.
So I'm glad to hear that is definitely something that is coming down the pike. For someone listening right now who may be a caregiver and is feeling very overwhelmed, what is one thing that you would want them to remember, or something that they could do to help?
First, you are not alone, and
Mm.
it's okay to accept help.
Yes.
One of the biggest things that I realize is that a lot of caregivers, they have gotten so used to doing everything by themselves
Mhm.
that if someone offers help, you are still worrying, okay, are they going to give them their meds at this time?
Right.
Are they going to, you need support.
Hmm.
You need structure. You need a plan,
Mhm.
especially as the disease progresses. You
Mhm.
cannot do it alone.
Yeah.
So if someone offers to even get the groceries for you,
Mhm.
allow them to do it.
Yeah.
If they didn't do it your way the first time, give them a list. Uh,
Yes.
Allow someone who says, okay, I can come and stay for 2 hours, take it
Yes.
and run out of the house. If it's even to go into the backyard,
That's
go
right.
outside, go and take a walk.
Mhm.
But you do need that break,
Absolutely.
because that is how you recharge.
Yeah.
Again, you cannot pour from an empty cup.
Mm.
And if you're running on empty, then it's going to manifest itself in a number of
It
ways.
sure will.
It's going to show up as illness, it's going to show
Mhm.
up as depression, it's going to show up
Absolutely.
as anger. And
Mhm.
then guess who feels it the most? You are going to start taking it out on your loved one.
Yeah. And that's the truth. And that is why, and I hear from people even in my practice, they say, no, I don't ask for help because I think other people's plates are too full. I said, listen, if somebody offers to help you,
Take it.
please say yes. Because
Absolutely.
what you don't understand is that you are going to start to be depleted.
Mhm.
And that is going to then spill over into other parts of your life that is going to come out as irritation,
Mhm.
isolation. And so it is important. And for those, I think there are people who also don't know how to help.
Mhm.
And so I like to tell people, hey, drop off some coffee in the morning,
Absolutely.
or drop off a magazine, or just sit on the porch with the person for
Order
a little
dinner for
while.
them. And
Or
yeah.
order dinner.
Mhm.
Absolutely. It doesn't take something big. I think people sometimes don't know how to help,
Mhm.
but I also tell caregivers,
Accept
people
it.
don't know what they don't know.
Exactly.
They don't
Yeah.
know.
And
Yeah.
you know, with all that that will manifest itself,
Mhm.
you don't intentionally want it to affect your loved one that you're taking care of,
Right.
but it happens and you don't even realize that it's
Mm.
happening
Yeah.
because it's not your intention. However, because of where you're at and all that you're carrying,
Yes.
it spills over and you don't even realize it until sometimes it's too late.
Right. That is true. Yeah. And so, working on the acceptance part and being open to receiving help, but also asking for help is
Mhm.
very important. And that helps you, it helps the caregiver, it helps everyone. So I would just like to take a moment and honor the work and expertise that you do around advocacy and training, because your work really speaks to the heart of supporting caregivers. And I feel that your work goes beyond the conversation, like you're doing the action part of it. So, can you tell the listeners a little bit about the work you're doing through your trainings and programs, and how you help your care teams better understand and support caregivers? I think you already answered that, but is there any more to share with that?
So I am also a certified Alzheimer's disease and dementia care trainer
Wow.
with the National Council of Certified Dementia Practitioners. What that means is that if a professional wants to get certified to become a certified dementia practitioner through NCCDP, then I host those seminars that will give them the certification that they need to then take and apply to NCCDP with their other credentials to become a certified dementia practitioner.
Wow.
I also host smaller, intimate seminars that I also worked on this journal. It's called Grief and Healing Reflections Journal, and this was as a direct result from a conversation I had with a gentleman who he doesn't want to go to a support group. He doesn't want to go to counseling,
Okay.
but you can hear the anger in his voice. And I asked him to use the journal.
Mhm.
And he said the first few days he was depressed going to bed after writing in the journal. And I said, keep going.
Part of the process.
You're taking it, you're letting it all out. Keep going.
Mhm.
And the second week he said to me, I'm beginning to realize some things that I never realized before. And one of them was him making himself anxious so that he does not have to face the sadness and the depression. So this is something that I intend to use as a part of either a support group or, to facilitate a group, so that if you don't want to talk about it with anyone else, at least you have the journal that will give you prompts. It gives you
Yes.
prompts that you can write down what you have to say and you have it. And one of the things that I like about what it does is that at the end of the 21 days, it gives you the option to write that person a letter telling them how you feel. And then it also gives you the option to write what you think your loved one would have wanted or would have said to you if they were able to. So it allows you to not only release, but to reset. And then it also gives you the option to write what you would like to happen in the future. So it not only looks at grief from the standpoint of physically losing someone, but it also looks at ambiguous loss because, not only caregivers dealing with individuals living with dementia go through that ambiguous loss of watching their loved one change and, in essence, decline right in front of them, but also other individuals, someone caring for someone with cancer or, other illnesses that will most of the time result in death. That also is a terrible kind of loss that it will affect the individual just the same.
I think that this is outstanding. I just want to hold it up because I looked through it. And this is definitely something that I would like to have in my own office to help people who are grieving. Because as you said, some people are not interested in going to sit with someone. It's a process. It takes time. So having something very handy and practical that they could look in and work through helps them, as you said, to release what is in your head and to put it on paper in your own way, at your own time, at your own
Exactly.
pace,
Correct.
could make a world of difference. And so thank you for creating that. And so this is through Bella Cares, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, so if you could tell us a little bit about Bella Cares, because that's your thing. And I know you wear many hats. That's why I'm trying to break it all down. Tell us a little bit about Bella Cares.
So Bella Cares was born from what I kept witnessing on a daily basis. And I wanted to offer myself beyond the families at work. Bella Cares initially started as a dementia education company where my focus was going out there and helping to educate others about the disease itself. But as the months went on last year, I realized something. I realized that enough emphasis was not placed on the person who is caring for um, individuals living with dementia. Caregivers, they are quietly taking care of their loved ones, and
Quietly.
you will see them. The loved one looks well dressed, well taken care of, and then you look at the carer and you're like, hold up, which one is
Who's taking care of
who's
who?
taking care of who?
Mhm.
So that's where the unseen
That's the unseen.
that's where the unseen comes from. And so through my trainings and workshops, I not only look at providing strategies to deal with a difficult shower, to deal with the challenges, to understand the disease process, but now I'm also including in the seminar how to take care of yourself, because
So
you
important.
cannot pour from an empty
So
vessel.
important.
Whether it's, if you're a faith-based person, you need that community. You need that community that you've had all these years. You need to take some time to continue to go and get recharged like you usually do when you go to
Absolutely.
church. So it's understanding that you don't have to give up your entire life, because there are times where you're going to still need to continue to do all these things to sustain you. So as a result of all of this, these are some of the things that I also include in my seminars. So the unseen caregiver is now a part of a broader mission where I want to make caregivers more visible and feel more supported and feel more understood and valued as well in the dementia care journey.
And valued is the word,
Yes.
because they are unseen. And as you said earlier, they're so used to just doing the work, but people aren't recognizing the work that really goes into it. So, thank goodness for you creating this kind of work to put the emphasis on the caregiver.
Right. So what it looks like is not providing any medical instructions
Yes,
or
yes,
advice.
yes.
It's not. You absolutely need to go to the doctor.
Yes.
It's providing support. It's also not providing you with the steps that you need to take, because each person has their own thing
So
to do. So
different.
for example, if someone reaches out to say, my I just got the diagnoses, what do I do now? If I am not able to help that individual, I always refer them to a senior advisor, because that's their niche. That is what they do. So it's not just making sure that I get clients in and try to work with them. If I'm not able to help the individual, I am going to point them to the direction where they need, where they can get the resources that they need. So my programs, they look at strategies, they look at the education as a whole with the disease process, and it also looks at what are the things that I can do now. What makes Bella Cares different from most other companies is that these are strategies that I see being used and proven on a daily basis. So I'm not just using strategies, or I'm not just saying something from reading a book, or it is real world experiences that have been tried, tested, and proven.
And that is what sets Bella apart from
Correct.
others. because you are seeing these tools put into action on a daily basis and you know that they work. That is incredible. So, for people who want to learn more about the work that you do, how can they connect with you and learn more about Bella Cares?
So, Bella Care's website is www.bellacares, the numeral 4, YOU.com, or my email is gbuchanan@bellacares, the numeral 4, the letter U.com. Or my phone number is 860-897-2099. And one other thing I must quickly, I also wrote a book. It's called Beyond the Diagnoses, Dignity First, Dementia Care for Families and Professionals. And if you notice how thin this book is, because caregivers do not have a lot of time to read, and they want something that they can quickly skim through, even when they go to bed for half an hour, something quick and simple. I also wrote Grace for the Caregiver's Heart, and that book, it is just scriptures and affirmations for every stage of the journey, including after the person dies. So it's also as small as this very thin book that, again, the whole idea was because caregivers don't have a lot of time. So it's a quick, easy read, something that will just give you that boost, that energy that you need, that encouragement to help you along the journey. So my mission is to make sure that caregivers are not invisible in the care conversation anymore.
I mean, this is just excellent because you have been very mindful with the way that you have created the material, knowing that caregivers just don't have a lot of time. And so something that is simple and practical that will help them along their daily journey of caring for their loved ones is what is needed.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for just being here with this important information. And I want to thank you all for listening to the Inside Out podcast, where we explore personal growth and inner work that shapes the way we live and find purpose from the inside out. And if something that you heard today resonates with you and you feel called to find out more information, you can contact me at info@ValandaBreakthrough.com. And if you feel called to tell your story, whether it's about healing or resilience or becoming, you're welcome to reach out to me. And again, I can be reached at info@ValandaBreakthrough.com. Thank you. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Wonderful. Absolutely.
Thank you.